Family man loses everything to help rich stranger. But she hides a big secret. David Harrison looked at his watch for the 10th time in 5 minutes as he hurried across the town square in Denver. He was late picking up his daughter from school, and his wife Sarah had already called 3 times demanding to know where he was. That was when he saw the elegant lady collapsed on the ground in the square, clutching her chest and struggling to breathe. Her grey hair spread across the cold ground, her beige coat stained with dirt, a black purse beside her. David stopped immediately. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked, kneeling down beside her. The woman tried to speak, but could only let out a faint groan. Her blue eyes showed panic and pain. David grabbed his phone with shaking hands. "Hello, 911. I need an ambulance at Memorial Square right away. A woman has collapsed." While he waited, David held the stranger's hand, trying to calm her. She squeezed his fingers with surprising strength for someone in her condition. "Don't worry, the ambulance is on its way," he said in a gentle voice. The lady whispered something he couldn't understand. He leaned in closer. "My purse. Don't let anyone open my purse." David nodded, not quite understanding why that would matter at a moment like that. The ambulance arrived within minutes, and the paramedics quickly assessed the situation. "Heart attack by the looks of it," one of them said. "We're taking her to St. Luke's Medical Center." "I'm going with her," David said without thinking. "Are you family?" I found her here. I can't leave her alone." At the most expensive private hospital in the region, David found himself in a situation he hadn't anticipated. The receptionist, a young woman in an immaculate white uniform, got straight to the point. "Sir, we need authorization for the procedure. The patient is unconscious and has no identification. The cost of the emergency cardiac catheterization is $17,000. David felt his stomach drop. $17,000 was exactly the amount he and Sarah had managed to save for their daughter Chloe's gallbladder surgery, scheduled for the following month. But she must have insurance, surely. Look at her clothes, her purse. "Without identification, we can't verify anything. Either you authorize the payment, or we'll have to transfer her to the public hospital. But I must warn you, time is ticking." David looked through the glass of the emergency room. The lady was hooked up to several machines, her breathing irregular. He thought about Chloe, about the surgery she needed. He thought about Sarah, who worked a double shift to help save that money. He thought about the trust that stranger had placed in him when she whispered about her purse. "I authorize it," he said, handing over his credit card. 3 hours later, Sarah arrived at the hospital, her face red with anger and her eyes swollen from crying. "David, have you completely lost your mind? $17,000. Chloe's money." "Sarah, she was dying. I couldn't—" "And what about our daughter? What if she needs emergency surgery? David, you don't think." The argument in the hospital hallway drew the attention of other family members and staff. David felt himself shrinking under the judgmental stares. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. David's phone rang. It was the bank. "Mr. Harrison, we detected suspicious activity on your account. Your limit has been blocked as a precaution." "What do you mean, suspicious? It was a medical payment." "Sir, the amount represents 80% of your annual limit. You'll need to come into the branch to get it resolved." Before he could respond, another call. The Children's Private Academy. "Mr. Harrison, it's about the overdue tuition for Nathan and Chloe. It's already been 3 months. If you don't settle this by Friday, we'll have to cancel the enrollments. But I asked for more time. I'm sorry, but those are the institution's rules." Sarah overheard the conversation, and her expression shifted from anger to despair. "Now the boys will pay for your impulse too, David." At that moment, his boss appeared in the hospital hallway. Robert Crawford, manager of the accounting firm where David had worked for 12 years, was far from pleased. "Harrison, where the hell are you?" The meeting with the Northern Steelworks clients was at 3 o'clock. They left furious. "Mr. Robert, let me explain. There was an emergency." "Emergency? What emergency justifies abandoning a $200,000 meeting?" David tried to explain about the lady, but the words came out jumbled. Robert shook his head disapprovingly. "Harrison, you've had poor performance for 3 months. Now this. Show up Monday at HR. We need to talk." When Robert walked away, Sarah grabbed her husband's arm. "David, you're going to lose your job. How are we going to pay for everything? The house, the boys, and now this hospital debt?" At that moment, a nurse came out of the room where the lady was. "The patient is awake and stable. You can see her." David and Sarah entered the room. The lady was sitting up in bed, looking much better than she had a few hours earlier. When she saw David, her eyes filled with tears. "You stayed here all this time? How are you feeling?" "Better, thanks to you. What's your name?" "David Harrison. This is my wife, Sarah." "I'm Eleanor Miller." Sarah couldn't hide the irritation in her voice. "Do you have health insurance? Because my husband spent all our savings to—" "Sarah," David interrupted her. Eleanor looked back and forth between them, confused. "Savings? I don't understand." "Mrs. Eleanor, the treatment cost $17,000. My husband paid for it thinking you would reimburse him, but—" Eleanor visibly paled. $17,000. My God, I don't have that kind of money." The silence that followed was awkward. Sarah looked at David with an expression that mixed anger and disappointment. "What do you mean you don't have it? Look at your clothes, your purse." Eleanor lowered her eyes. "Appearances can be deceiving. I don't have money. I don't have anything." David felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. Sarah left the room without saying a word. Eleanor held his hand. "I'm so sorry. I really am. Mom, forgive me for asking, but who are you? Where did you come from? Do you have family?" Eleanor hesitated for a long moment. "I don't have anyone in this city. Actually, I don't have anyone anywhere. But your documents, your things, everything I have is in that purse, and it isn't much." David picked up the black purse that was next to the bed. Eleanor made a protective gesture. "Please, don't. Not yet. You asked me to take care of you. I'm taking care of you." "I know, but I need more time." Something in Eleanor's voice made David realize she was hiding far more than financial problems. There was fear in her eyes, the kind of fear that had nothing to do with money. The nurse came in again. "I'm sorry, but we need the patient's information for the records. Full name, social security number, address." Eleanor became visibly nervous. "I don't have my documents with me right now." "But we need that information, Mom." "Eleanor Miller, like I said." The nurse waited for the rest, but Eleanor didn't continue. "Social security number, address." "I can't recall my social security number off the top of my head, and I don't have a fixed address at the moment." The nurse looked suspicious, jotted down some notes and left. David realized that something was very wrong. That night, David slept in the armchair in Eleanor's hospital room. Sarah had gone home, still furious, taking the children with her. At around 2 in the morning, David woke up to Eleanor stirring in bed, apparently having a nightmare. "No, please. They can't find me. They can't." She woke with a start, breaking out in a cold sweat. "It's all right, Mrs. Eleanor. It was just a dream." Eleanor looked around, disoriented for a few seconds. "What time is it?" 2 in the morning. You were having a nightmare." Eleanor was silent for a moment, as if deciding whether she could trust him. "David, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you help me? You don't even know me." David thought for a moment. "My mother always said that you have to do what's right, even when it's hard. And if I told you that helping me might have gotten you into something dangerous," David felt his stomach drop. "Dangerous how? There are people who don't want me to be found, powerful people." "Why?" Eleanor looked at the bag beside the bed. "Because of what I know, what I carry with me." "In the bag?" "Among other things." David leaned forward. "Mrs. Eleanor, if you're in danger, maybe we should get help." "Who's going to help us? You don't understand. These people have influence, money, power. They already managed to take everything from me once." "Everything?" Eleanor took a deep breath. "My family, my home, my entire life." The next day, David had to face reality. He arrived at work and found a box on his desk with his personal belongings. Robert was waiting. "Harrison, I'm sorry, but there was no other option. The company needs trustworthy people. Mr. Robert, please. I have a family, bills to pay. You should have thought about that before. HR will explain the severance. David left the company carrying the box, feeling humiliated and desperate. On his phone, there were 7 missed calls from Sarah and 3 messages from the bank demanding explanations about the freeze. When he got back to the hospital, Eleanor was wearing the same clothes as the day before, holding the black bag. David, they said I've been discharged, but I have nowhere to go. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Mrs. Eleanor, I lost my job today. Eleanor was silent for a moment. Because of me. Because of my choice. I don't regret helping you. But your family. My family is going through hard times because of my decisions, but that doesn't change what I did. Eleanor held the bag strap tightly. David, if I tell you the truth about who I am, about why I'm here, you could be putting yourself at risk. What kind of risk? The kind that can destroy your life the same way they destroyed mine. David looked at her for a long moment. Mrs. Eleanor, my life is already practically destroyed. I have nothing left to lose. Eleanor nodded slowly. Then it's time to open the bag. They left the hospital and went to a bench in the town square. Eleanor carefully opened the black bag. Inside, David saw old black and white photographs, letters yellowed by time, and some folded documents. These are pictures of my family, Eleanor said, showing a photograph of an elegant family in front of a mansion. This is my father, my mother, and this girl is me at 15. David examined the photo. The mansion in the background was impressive, with well-kept gardens and a fountain at the entrance. And these letters? They're from a lawyer, documents proving that my family was robbed. Eleanor picked up one of the letters and carefully unfolded it. In 1987, my father hired a trusted accountant to take care of the family business. His name was Arthur Sterling. He had our complete trust. What happened? He forged documents, transferred properties, drained bank accounts. When we found out, it was already too late. My father had a heart attack from the shock. My mother fell into a deep depression and was never the same again. David looked at the documents. There were deeds, contracts, and correspondence indicating suspicious transactions. And you? How did you survive? I ran away to New York City at 17, with nothing. I worked in family homes, shops, anything. I got married, had a daughter, tried to build a new life. You had a daughter? Eleanor's face grew deeply sad. Lucy. She was born in 1971. She was the most precious thing in my life. Was? Eleanor took a deep breath as if gathering the courage to continue. When she was 2 years old, my husband abandoned me. I couldn't support the two of us. A wealthy family offered to adopt her. They promised me it would be temporary, until I could get back on my feet, but it wasn't temporary. I never saw her again. They changed her name and never gave me any news. I spent 40 years searching for my daughter. David felt a tightness in his chest. He was beginning to understand why Eleanor had come to that city. Did you come here looking for your daughter? Not exactly. I received information that the man who robbed my family, Arthur Sterling, is living here in Denver under a false name, and that he's become a respected businessman. After 40 years, an attorney who was investigating old frauds reached out to me. He said he found evidence linking Arthur Sterling to other families he had robbed, and that he's here. David looked around the town square, as if expecting to see someone watching them. And what do you intend to do? Recover what is rightfully mine. The properties he stole are still registered in my family's name at the old county clerk offices. But why were you afraid at the hospital? Why did you say it was dangerous? Eleanor showed a more recent photo printed on plain paper. This photo was taken 2 months ago. This is Arthur Sterling today. He changed his name to Everett Vance and owns a construction company here in town. David looked at the photo and went cold. He knew that face. Mrs. Eleanor, this man, you know him. He's a client of the company I worked for. Or rather, used to work for. Eleanor went pale. Then he knows who you are. Probably. And if he knows I'm helping you. At that moment, David's cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Mr. Harrison? This is Mr. Everett Vance's office. He'd like to speak with you today. David looked at Eleanor, who had heard the conversation. About what? About your accounting services. Could you come to the office at 5 o'clock? David hung up with trembling hands. He knows, said Eleanor. Somehow he found out. What do we do now? Eleanor put the photos and documents back in her purse. Now we need to be smarter than him. And we need help. They spent the rest of the afternoon at a small public library, researching Everett Vance and his construction company. They discovered he had built several developments in the city over the last 15 years, always on land he had purchased for very low prices. Look at this, said David, pointing at a newspaper article on the computer. It says here he bought the land where he built the shopping mall for only $100,000 from a family in financial trouble. Which family? David clicked for more details. The Foster family. They lost everything after their accountant ran off with their money. Eleanor and David looked at each other. The pattern was clear. He's been doing this for decades, said Eleanor. He robs families and then buys their properties for next to nothing. But how do you prove it? With the documents I have, and with more investigation. At 5 o'clock, David was in front of the construction company building, a modern glass edifice in downtown Denver. Eleanor was waiting at a cafe on the corner, watching from a distance. Everett Vance was a 65-year-old man with well-groomed grey hair, an expensive suit and a trustworthy appearance. He received David with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Harrison, what a pleasure to meet you in person. Mr. Vance, I admit I was surprised by the invitation. I hear you're currently unemployed. David felt a chill. How did he know that so quickly? Unfortunately, yes. And I also hear you're having some financial difficulties, unexpected medical expenses, right? Now David was sure Vance knew everything. Mr. Vance, excuse my asking, but how do you know that? Vance leaned back in his leather chair, still smiling. Denver is a small town, Mr. Harrison. News travels fast. What news? About your generosity in helping a stranger at the hospital. Very noble of you. It's my duty as a citizen. Of course, but sometimes our kindness can be misinterpreted, don't you think? David didn't answer. Vance continued. For example, if someone thought you were involved with that woman for other reasons, less noble reasons. I don't understand. Financial reasons, as if she were a con artist and you two were working together to pull off scams. David stood up from his chair. Mr. Vance, I don't know what you're implying, but... Calm down, Mr. Harrison, sit down. I'm offering an opportunity. What opportunity? A job, well paid, with a few simple conditions. What conditions? Vance opened a drawer and took out a thick envelope. $50,000 to pay off your debts and still have plenty left over. David looked at the envelope without touching it. In exchange for what? In exchange for you convincing that woman to leave town. For her own good, of course. Why does she bother you so much? Vance lost his smile for a moment. Unstable people can cause unnecessary problems, making up stories, making unfounded accusations. It's not good for anyone. And if I refuse? That would be a shame, because then I'd have to take more direct measures. What kind of measures? Well, you have 2 children at the private academy, don't you? Nathan and Chloe? And your wife works at the downtown pharmacy? Loved ones have to be protected, Mr. Harrison. David felt the anger rise in his chest. Are you threatening me? I'm offering protection. Take the money, convince the woman to leave, and we all get peace. David stood up again. I'll think about your proposal. Don't take too long. The offer has a limited shelf life. When David left the building, his hands were shaking. Eleanor was waiting at the cafe, anxious. How did it go? He knows everything, and he's threatening us. David told her about the conversation, about the money offered, and the veiled threats. Eleanor was silent for a long time. Now I'm sure it's him, she said finally. What do we do? Let's go to my family's old house. If it still exists, there may be evidence he couldn't destroy. They took a bus to the Cherry Creek district in Denver, where Eleanor's family property was located. During the ride, she shared more details about her childhood. My father was an industrialist. He manufactured automobile parts. He had 3 factories and employed more than 500 workers. We were one of the most respected families in the city. And you lost everything at once? It wasn't at once. It was a slow, calculated process. First, Arthur convinced my father to make some risky investments. Then, he started transferring money to temporary accounts that were actually his own. By the time we realized, the factories were bankrupt and the properties were mortgaged. The bus stopped in a neighborhood of enormous houses and well-kept gardens. Eleanor looked around, nostalgic. This was it, but it's changed so much. They walked a few blocks until they reached an empty lot surrounded by plywood fencing. A sign read, "Coming soon, Oakwood Heights, developed by Vance Construction Group." Eleanor leaned against the fence, visibly shaken. "He tore down my house. He's going to build a development where I grew up." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like, and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. David observed the lot. It was enormous, probably worth millions. "Mrs. Eleanor, when did your family lose this property?" "In 1989. My father was forced to sell it for a pittance to pay off debts that were actually fabricated. And now Arthur owns it, apparently." They walked around the lot looking for a way in. In a more secluded area, they found an opening in the fence. "We shouldn't go in there," David said. "David, that was my home. My father planted every tree in that garden. I need to see if anything is left." They entered carefully. The lot was being prepared for construction with machinery and debris scattered around. But in the back, there were still some old trees and part of the original house's foundation. Eleanor walked straight to a specific area. This was my father's office. He had a safe built into the wall. "Do you think it could still be there?" "There's only one way to find out." They sifted through the rubble until they found part of the old office wall. Eleanor touched the stones as if she were reading Braille. Here, the safe was right behind here. There was no wall left, only the foundation, but Eleanor kept searching among the stones. After an hour of digging, David found something metal. "Mrs. Eleanor, look at this." It was a small metal box, rusted but intact. Eleanor took it with trembling hands. "It's my father's document box. He kept his most important papers in here." The box was locked, but the rust had weakened the metal. With a rock, they managed to pry it open. Inside were documents in good condition, protected by plastic. Eleanor examined each paper with growing care. "David, this is pure gold. Original contracts, correspondence proving the fraud, even cassette tape recordings." "Recordings?" "My father was very careful. He recorded all his important meetings. One of the documents caught David's attention. It was a birth certificate." "Mrs. Eleanor, this isn't from the time of the fraud." Eleanor picked up the document and froze. "It's my daughter's birth certificate, Lucy Harrison Miller." "Harrison Miller?" The surname of the family that adopted her was Harrison. David felt his blood run cold. "Mrs. Eleanor, what was the full name of the family that adopted your daughter?" "John Harrison and Martha Harrison." "Why?" David sat down on the ground, dizzy. "Mrs. Eleanor, Harrison is my last name. John Harrison was my father." The silence that followed seemed eternal. Eleanor looked at David as if seeing him for the first time. "That's not possible. My mother's name was Martha. She died when I was 15. My father always said I had a biological mother who couldn't raise me." Eleanor held David's face with both hands, studying every detail. "Were you born in 1973? "Yes." "In New York City?" "Yes." "My God. Lucy. You're Lucy." David felt as if the world were spinning. "That means I'm your mother, my son. I'm your mother." They embraced right there among the rubble of the old house, crying 40 years of longing. Eleanor told him about the years she spent searching for him, about the sleepless nights wondering if he was okay, if he was happy. "I always knew we would find each other one day," she said, "but I never imagined it would be like this." "Is that why you were so nervous at the hospital? Did you suspect something?" "When you helped me in the town square, when you held my hand, I felt something familiar. Your way of speaking, your gestures, but I didn't want to get my hopes up." "And is that why you came to Denver?" "No. I came after Everett Vance, but maybe fate planned for us to meet here." David looked at the documents scattered on the floor. "Mom," the word came out naturally, "now we have evidence to bring down Everett Vance." "Yes, but we also have much more to lose now. I have you back. I have a daughter-in-law and grandchildren. I don't want to put our family at risk." "But Mom, how many other families has he destroyed? How many people lost everything like you did?" Eleanor looked at the ruins of the house where she grew up. "You're right. We need to see justice done." They gathered all the documents and left the property. Now they had concrete proof, but they also knew Everett Vance wouldn't give up easily. The next day, they went to see the lawyer who had contacted Eleanor in New York City. Attorney Mark Bennett was a 60-year-old man specializing in financial fraud cases. His office was in a small, modest room downtown. "Mrs. Eleanor, I'm glad you made it here, and these documents, they're impressive." "Attorney Mark, this is my son David. We found out yesterday that we're family." The lawyer looked between them in surprise. "What an extraordinary coincidence." "It wasn't a coincidence," Eleanor said. "It was fate." Attorney Mark examined the documents for over an hour, taking notes and comparing dates. "With this evidence, we can prove that Everett Vance, whose real name is Arthur Sterling, defrauded your family and at least 6 other families I've identified. We're talking about assets in the range of $50 million. "And what happens now?" David asked. "Now we file a lawsuit for restitution of assets and damages. But I must warn you, Everett has a lot of power in this city. He'll fight with everything he's got." "We're ready," Eleanor said. "There's something else. David, you worked for the firm that handles the accounting for Everett's businesses?" "I did. I was fired yesterday." "That could be used as intimidation in court. He's trying to silence you." That afternoon, Attorney Mark filed the lawsuit in court. Within hours, the news spread through the city. Everett Vance, one of the most respected businessmen in Denver, was being sued for fraud. David returned home for the first time in 2 days. Sarah was in the kitchen making dinner with a sour look on her face. "Sarah, I need to talk to you." "Now you want to talk? After disappearing for 2 days?" "What I'm about to tell you will change everything." David told the whole story, from meeting Eleanor to discovering that she was his mother. Sarah listened in silence, her expression shifting between disbelief and astonishment. "Are you telling me that woman is your biological mother?" "I am, and that the man who robbed her family is the same one who's threatening us now." "David, this sounds like something out of a soap opera." "I know it sounds that way, but it's real, and now we have a chance to get back everything he stole." "Everything what?" "Properties, money, companies, Sarah, we're talking about millions of dollars." Sarah sat down slowly. "And the risks?" "There are risks. Everett won't give up easily." At that moment, Nathan and Chloe arrived from school. David looked at his children and felt a mix of protectiveness and determination. "Dad, why didn't you pick us up yesterday?" Chloe asked. "Sweetheart, Daddy was taking care of something very important, something that could change our lives." "For the better?" Nathan asked. "I hope so, son." Later, when the children went to sleep, Sarah brought up the subject again. "David, are you sure you want to go through with this? We have a simple life, but a safe one." "Sarah, this isn't just about money. It's about justice. How many families has Everett destroyed? How many people lost everything like my mother did?" "Your mother? It's still strange to hear that. For me, too. But I feel like everything makes sense now. Why I always felt incomplete. Why I always felt like something was missing. And where is your mother staying?" "At a cheap hotel downtown. She doesn't have money for anything better." Sarah sighed. "Bring her here tomorrow. Let us meet the children's grandmother." The next morning, Attorney Mark called early. "David, we have a problem. Everett got an injunction temporarily suspending our case. What do you mean? He claimed the documents could be forged and requested a technical forensic examination. It could take months. So now what? We need more evidence, something that can't be disputed. David went to pick up Eleanor from the hotel. During breakfast, she suggested something they hadn't thought of before. David, remember I told you about the recordings my father used to make? Yes, they were in the box we found. There were other recordings. My father had a security system in the house that recorded everything that happened in the office. But the house was demolished. The recording hub was in the basement. Maybe it's still there. They went back to the lot where the old house once stood, this time bringing a flashlight and tools. They searched until they found the remains of the staircase leading to the basement. The basement was partially buried, but still accessible. Eleanor guided David to a specific corner. Here. The equipment was here. After digging for over an hour, they found a larger metal box similar to a small safe. Inside were cassette tapes carefully catalogued by date. My father was very organized, Eleanor said. If there's evidence of the fraud, it's on these tapes. Back at Attorney Mark's office, they listened to several tapes. Most were normal business meetings, but on a tape from 1988 they heard something extraordinary. Arthur Sterling's voice was clear. Mr. Silver, I know you trust me, but I need you to sign these papers urgently. It's just a formality for a temporary transfer. The voice of Eleanor's father, already elderly. Arthur, I don't understand much of these technical terms. Are you sure it's safe? Absolutely, Mr. Silver. It's just until we sort things out with the IRS. Then we transfer everything back. But in a phone conversation recorded on the same tape, they heard Arthur speaking with someone else. I got the signatures. Now we just wait a few months, and the entire inheritance will be ours. The old man won't live much longer anyway. Attorney Mark paused the tape. That's a full confession. With these recordings, Everett has no way to defend himself. The next day, they filed the new evidence. But Everett Vance didn't sit still. That same afternoon, David received a call from the school. Mr. Harrison, there was an incident involving your children. What kind of incident? Some men came by asking about them. They claimed to be relatives, but they didn't have authorization to pick up the children. David rushed to the school, where he found Nathan and Chloe frightened in the front office. Dad, some strange men wanted us to go with them, Chloe said. They said you had sent them, Nathan added. David hugged his children, feeling a mix of anger and fear. As he was leaving the school, he found Eleanor waiting on the sidewalk. Mum, what are you doing here? Sarah called me. She told me what happened. Everett is escalating the threats. Then we need to escalate our response too. That night, Attorney Mark came to their house. I have bad news and good news, he said. The bad news is that Everett got another injunction, this time questioning the authenticity of the tapes. And the good news? The good news is that the other families he defrauded are coming forward. We now have 12 families willing to testify against him. And what does that change? It changes everything. Instead of an isolated case, now we have a pattern of continued crimes. The courts will have to act. But Everett Vance had more tricks up his sleeve. The next day, Sarah was fired from the pharmacy where she had worked for 5 years. They said it was a cost-cutting measure, she told David, but everyone knows it was pressure from him. Sarah, I'm so sorry. No, David. Now I understand why you did what you did. That man is a monster. Eleanor, who was in the room with them, held Sarah's hand. My dear, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I need you to know I will fight to the end to make up for all the suffering that my quest for justice has caused you. Mrs. Eleanor, can I call you Mom? Asked Sarah. Please do. Mom, it's not your fault. You were the first victim. Now we're all victims of the same man. In the following weeks, the situation became increasingly tense. Everett used all his influence to pressure suppliers not to sell to the families who were suing him. David had difficulty even getting basic services, but the other families began to organize. They formed a support group, sharing resources and information. Attorney Mark brought in other lawyers to help with the case. The turning point came from where they least expected it. On a Thursday afternoon, Attorney Mark approached them with an expression that mixed surprise and satisfaction. You won't believe what happened. What is it? Asked Eleanor. Everett Vance's current accountant showed up at my office today. He wants to make a deal. Why? Because he found out that Everett is pulling the same scheme on him, forging documents, preparing to steal the accounting firm. David couldn't believe it. He's still doing this after all these years. Apparently it's compulsive. The accountant brought documents proving recent frauds in at least 3 other companies in the city. And how does that help us? It helps us a lot, because now we have recent crimes, not just old ones, and we have a witness who was directly involved. The trial was set for 3 weeks later. Everett tried a few more legal maneuvers, but the amount of evidence and witnesses made it impossible to escape. On the day of the trial, the courthouse was full. More than 50 people were directly affected by Everett Vance's crimes, entire families who had lost everything over 4 decades. Eleanor was the first witness to testify. With a steady voice, she told her whole story, from her privileged childhood to the years of poverty and searching for her lost daughter. "Your Honor, I lost my father, my mother, my home, my daughter, my entire life because of this man. But what hurts me most is knowing that he kept doing this to other families, destroying other lives. The accountant who made the deal brought devastating evidence. Documents, recordings of phone conversations, proof of fraudulent transfers. Everett tried to defend himself by claiming everything was legitimate, that the families had real debts, that he just helped resolve complicated situations. But the evidence was overwhelming. The most emotional moment came when David was called to testify. "Mr. Harrison, you met the main plaintiff in this case under special circumstances. Can you tell us about it?" "I met my mother when she was having a heart attack in the town square. Without knowing who she was, I spent all my family's savings to save her. And why did you do that? Because it was the right thing to do. My mother, my adoptive mother, always taught me that we should help those in need, even when it's hard for us. And you later discovered she was your biological mother." "I did. And I understood that perhaps I was led to her at that moment precisely so that we could find justice together." The judge deliberated for 2 hours. When he returned to the courtroom, his expression was serious. "We rarely see cases with such clear evidence and such ongoing crimes. Mr. Everett Vance, or rather Arthur Sterling, you are guilty of fraud, document forgery, embezzlement, and the formation of a scheme to defraud others. The sentence is 12 years in prison and full restitution of all assets obtained fraudulently." The courthouse erupted in applause. Eleanor cried, embraced by David and Sarah. The other families embraced one another, some crying with relief after decades of waiting for justice. Arthur was led away in handcuffs, still protesting his innocence. His lawyers announced they would appeal, but everyone knew there was no escaping that evidence. 6 months later, the Harrison family was in a completely different situation. The restitution of Eleanor's assets included not only the family's original properties, but also all the wealth Arthur had built with stolen money. David opened a financial consulting firm specializing in helping families who had been victims of fraud. Sarah went back to school and was studying law, inspired by the experience they had lived through. Nathan and Chloe adapted well to their new financial situation, but more importantly, they adapted to having their grandmother Eleanor around, who now lived with them. "Grandma, tell the story again about how you found Dad," Chloe would ask on the nights when Eleanor tucked her into bed. "Once upon a time, there was a good man who stopped his life to help a stranger," Eleanor always began. He didn't know it, but that stranger had spent 40 years searching for him. One afternoon, David and Eleanor were in the garden of the new house, a property that had been recovered from her family. "Mom, sometimes I still can't believe all of this happened." "Neither can I, son, but I learned that sometimes we have to lose everything to find what truly matters." And what truly matters? Eleanor looked toward the kitchen window, where Sarah was preparing lunch while Nathan and Chloe did their homework at the table. "Family, my son. It's always about family." Attorney Mark visited them regularly, not only as their lawyer but as a friend. On one of those visits, he brought news about Arthur. "He's at the Denver County Jail. The other inmates don't take too kindly to people who steal from families. He's in protective custody. Do you feel any satisfaction from that?" Eleanor asked. "No, what I feel is pity. I imagine how many good things he could have done with all that intelligence and skill. And the other cases, the other families, all of them are being compensated. Some have already received their properties back. Others will receive monetary damages. And the companies he created, they're being managed by a court-appointed committee. The profits are being used to pay the compensation. A year after the trial, Eleanor decided to do something special with part of the recovered money. She created a foundation to help people who had lost everything due to financial fraud. The Reunion Foundation offered free legal assistance, psychological support, and even temporary financial aid for families in vulnerable situations. "Why did you choose that name?" David asked. "Because it was a reunion that changed everything. My reunion with you, our reunion with justice, the reunion of all those families with the reparations they deserved." David became the president of the foundation, using his accounting experience to identify potential frauds and help victims recover their assets. Sarah, now graduated with a law degree, opened a firm specializing in similar cases. Attorney Mark became her partner, and together they gained national recognition for their work. Nathan decided to study journalism, inspired by the idea of exposing injustices and helping people. Chloe wanted to be a doctor, influenced by the experience of nearly losing her grandmother. On a Sunday afternoon, 5 years after that day in the town square, the whole family was gathered for a barbecue in the backyard. Eleanor watched David playing with his grandchildren and talking with Sarah. Attorney Mark was there too, already considered part of the family. Some of the other families who had been victims of Arthur also showed up. "You know what impresses me most about this whole story?" Attorney Mark said to Eleanor. "What? How a tragedy from 40 years ago turned into a blessing for so many people." Eleanor smiled, watching David teach Nathan how to make skewers. "I've always believed that the bad things that happen to us have a purpose. Sometimes it takes a long time to understand what it is, but there's always a purpose. And what was the purpose of everything you went through? The purpose was to bring us together as a family and give us the chance to help other people find their own reunions." At that moment, David approached them. "What are you two thinking about?" "We were talking about purposes," said Eleanor. "And what's our purpose now?" Eleanor looked around, seeing all those people who had become an extended family, all united by the experience of seeking justice and finding hope. "Our purpose is to keep helping people find each other, whether it's finding a lost family member, finding justice, or simply finding hope." Sarah joined the group, carrying a tray with dessert. "What are you guys talking about?" "About how we got here," said David. "And about where we go from here," Eleanor added. "And where are we going?" Sarah asked. Eleanor looked at each of them, then at the other families scattered around the yard. "We're going to keep doing what we've always done, taking care of each other and helping those in need." "Like you helped that lady in the town square, Dad," said Nathan, who had come closer. "Like Grandma helped me find my true family," said Chloe. David embraced the 2 generations of his family and smiled. "You know what I learned from all of this?" "What?" they all asked at once. "I learned that when we do what's right, even when it's hard, the universe has a way of rewarding us in ways we never imagined." Eleanor nodded, remembering that morning in the town square when she saw a stranger stop everything to help her. "And I learned that sometimes the person who needs help the most can be exactly the person who changes our lives forever." Attorney Mark raised his glass of juice. "A toast, then, to the Harrison Miller family, and to everyone who learned that losing everything sometimes is just the beginning of finding everything." Everyone toasted, children and adults, in a celebration that wasn't just of one reunited family, but of several families who had found justice and peace. As the sun began to set, Eleanor watched David help Sarah clean up the barbecue things, while Nathan and Chloe ran around the yard. She thought about the 40 years she had spent searching for this moment, the sleepless nights imagining what her son would be like, the tears shed dreaming of a reunion. She never imagined that when she finally found her son, it would be in a situation where he saved her instead of her saving him. She never imagined that the search for justice would become a search for family, and she never imagined that losing everything could, in the end, mean gaining more than she ever dreamed of having. David approached her. "Mom, are you okay?" Everything is perfect, my son. Absolutely perfect. Do you regret anything? All the hard years, all the struggle? Eleanor looked into the eyes of the son she had searched for so long. I don't regret a thing. Because every difficult day, every tear shed, every moment of despair brought me here. To you. And now? Now we have the rest of our lives to make up for lost time. David hugged his mother, as he did every night before bed, as he tried to do every day to make up for the 40 years of hugs they had lost. Mom? Yes? Thank you for never giving up on finding me. Thank you for finding me first. And so, on a Sunday afternoon in Denver, as the sun set over a reunited family, the story that began with loss was completed with reunion. The story that began with despair ended with hope. And the story that began with a man helping a stranger ended with an entire family dedicated to helping others find their own happy endings. The end. Now tell us, what did you think of this reunion story? Do you believe David made the right choice when he helped Eleanor at the town square? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between helping a stranger and protecting your own family? Share your opinion in the comments. We really want to know what you think. And don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories like this one.